From hops cones to hops pellets. Hi my friends. For those who don't know me, Max from Hops Brazil and Hops World. Yesterday we had the pleasure of having Andrew Lyons from Lyons Buying Hops Farm in central Pennsylvania in the United States for our second live event. We had that live on our Facebook group, Hops Brazil, but we're going to put it here on our YouTube channel, Hops World. If you like it, please click like, subscribe to our channel. We're going to have a new live with people from around the world, all about hops, once a month. And starting next week, we're going to start putting little tips and videos all about hops once a week. So without further ado, let's talk about pelletizing and processing hops with Andrew Lyons. Let's do it. Good evening, Andrew. Can you hear me?
How you doing? Yep, I can hear you.
Great. For you folks out there who speak English, we're here tonight in our second live event in our group on Facebook, Hops Brazil. We're really glad to have you, and we're thrilled to have our guest this month, Andrew Lyons from Lyons Buying Hops Farm. I got your name right that time. But Andrew, last year, his company bought a complete pelletizing and bagging setup, a food grade setup, and they set it up at his hops farm, Lyons Buying Hops Farm. It's in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, in the United States. I'll put this out here now. At the end, I'll tell you how to get a hold of Andrew. Anyone in the area, far or near, Andrew is processing hops for other farms. He has a state-of-the-art food grade setup, all licensed. So if you need your fresh cones, dried cones processed into pellets, give him a call. So without further ado, we're going to start asking questions. This is our 20 questions about pelletizing and processing hops. Awesome. So the first question is, we spoke prior when I was visiting your farm, Andrew, and you mentioned that you had a background in food safety, food grade type of work. Can you explain that a little?
Yes, I come from the grocery store industry, and also a food safety certified manager. Learn a lot of different things, but it all goes hand in hand. So that's been about 13 years of that background.
Okay. I don't know if it was a little bit cut up for you guys, but basically Andrew said he has 13 years working in the supermarket industry. If I recall, he was manager of a few supermarkets. And so his background is in food safety and food grade. So second question, Andrew, is how did you actually get involved with hops and your interest in hops?
Yeah, it originally years ago, my father and I started homebrewing. And whereas many homebrewers want to get into the actual brewing industry, just after a conversation with some friends and all the breweries that are in my local area, we decided to go the other route. Everybody likes local, and we decided to go with hops. I'll be honest, at the time, I didn't know much about them, but we dove right in, and I found that this is something that I love doing more than anything.
And how long have you been involved with that?
This is, we just finished our third year, so we're going into our fourth.
So the next question will be your current hop yard. How many varieties, how many plants, what year?
So right now, we have just an acre planted. We do have it might be a little bit more than that. We've kind of made some small additions. I have right around 900 plants at the moment, and we currently have 5 varieties. Those are Zeus, Chinook, Cascade, Nugget, and we just added Southern Cross this year as a fall planting. So that'll actually be for next year. And we're thinking about taking out Zeus, just focusing on 4 varieties, but we might give it another year. So that's where we're at the moment.
So can you explain a little bit of your Hammermill, the make, model, the horsepower, an idea how many pounds per hour?
Yeah. So yeah, we use a Hammermill. So basically, as soon as we are ready to process, our dry hops go right in. It turns the whole leaf cones into essentially a powder. We have a complete Buzzkirk engineering setup, and our setup is one of their smaller ones, which is plenty for what we need. It is a 10 horsepower model. The model is the HM100, I do believe. As far as pounds per hour goes, we have not even gotten close to what I believe it can do. I mean, I've done 200 pounds in 20 minutes through this machine, chews it right up. So easily probably 500-600 pounds or more an hour. It's an awesome machine, gives us great uniform pellets, and it does a great job.
Can you explain, Andrew, please, actually what the Hammermill does? Its object and function?
Yeah, so I'll try not to get into too many of the other questions, so I'll focus just on how it works. Basically, inside of a Hammermill, I know there's others that are different, but ours there's a couple of spinning blades kind of at the bottom of a chute. So there's a chute that we can dump the hops into. They fall down and they get chopped up. While that's happening, there's actually a vacuum, which we'll discuss in a little bit, that is sucking all the powder out, but it's also helping suck the hops into that chute down into the blades where it gets chopped up.
So can you explain your, I call it a reclassifier, a vacuum? I'm not sure what it's actually called, but give us a name, model, and explain a little bit about it, please.
Yeah, so it's essentially a wood shop vacuum is how it started out. It is part of Buzzkirk's 3-tier system, so it comes with the Hammermill, the vacuum, as well as the Pelletizer. And it's just modified a bit, but it's actually made by a company called Valley Industries. They have various models. This one, I'm not sure of the model number, but it's one of their smaller units. And it does a great job just sucking all of the powder out of the Hammermill, and then it collects it into a big 50-gallon drum with the powder that we can then use to dump in and make our pellets.
Can we talk about now the actual Hammermill, the make and model, and then the horsepower? So basically what the machine is?
Yeah. Do you mean the Pelletizer?
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Pelletizer.
Everybody does it. So yeah, it's also it is a Pelletizer that was made by Buzzkirk Engineering as well as the Hammermill. It too has a 10 horsepower motor. The model is a PM810, and it's a flat die mill, and it runs on a 10-inch die. So it's kind of in the middle. I mean, it's still small for the sake of pelletizing, but they use more of a low speed, high torque system. So you're not getting 1,000 pounds an hour or anything like that. I mean, we typically stick with maybe 200 an hour, or it will start to get too warm. So when it does that, we start to try and slow it down or stop to give it a break.
Sure. How do you say that? Buzzkirk?
Buzzkirk.
Buzzkirk. Andrew, can you tell us about the initial feed? And I remember when I was there, there's that initial loss of pellets that were in the machine prior, and a little bit about how the machine starts speeding up once it warms up.
Yeah, so like when you were here, we had just done a run earlier that day of the same variety. But what'll happen is every time your die fills and then you're done, your die is still going to be full of pellets. So generally, you're always going to lose either on the front end if it's an empty die or on the back end if it's a full die. For us, the average loss is about 5 pounds. So obviously, if somebody brought me 20 pounds to process, they're going to lose 25%. But if they bring me 1,000 pounds to process, they're still only going to lose 5 pounds if it's all the same variety, which we'd clean out if it wasn't. And as far as the initial heat up, yeah, you turn the machine on, and initially you might get more like a powder until it heats up, and we collect that powder and dump it back in as the machine heats up and starts making pellets.
Can we talk a little bit, Andrew, about when the pellets leave the machine, the temperature? You mentioned an issue when it gets too hot, about letting the machine relax a little and the machine speed.
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that go into it. Moisture is the most important thing next to heat, and the two kind of coincide. Um, so obviously you want an 8 to 10% moisture when you're running it through the machine. Um, the wetter they are, the higher they are, and I've processed at the low end and the high end. And if they're really wet, it gets hotter quicker, just with all that moisture. Um, and your hops can actually come out and they start crumbling, they start breaking. But if you're in the ideal moisture, they come out perfect density, right where they need to be, and perfect color. So as you get too hot, you actually start to scorch the hops, and you'll see like a much darker green or even turning black. And that's when you know that you've hit temperatures well above 150 degrees, and your oils start to degrade at that point substantially. So you really don't want to be going above 110 degrees, which is where we try to stay. So if we start getting too hot, we slow down or we just take a break and let the machine cool off.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your packaging setup? What brand and the machine and the addition of nitrogen?
Yep. Yeah. So when it comes to packaging hops, this isn't just, it's not like using your regular kitchen vacuum sealer. We use all Mylar bags here, which is pretty much industry standard. And your regular commercial vacuum sealers aren't very good or won't seal Mylar. So it takes a commercial grade vacuum sealer to be able to do that. We used what's called the Amerivac AVN20. That model in particular allows for nitrogen purge. So not only will it suck all the air out, but it also allows you to flush the bag with nitrogen, which is an inert gas, to help further preserve the hops that are in there. And you can actually pillow pack the packaging. So just it fits nicer, it ships nicer, the bags don't break as easy or tear. Um, so that does require the additional nitrogen tank that goes in with it. But all in all, it's a beast of a machine. It does an outstanding job.
The bagging process.
Hmm.
Can you talk about? I know after the pellets leave the pelletizer, I think you have to cool them down, and then actually, you mentioned a little bit difference between a suction and a fluff
Hmm.
bagging. Can
Yeah.
you explain that?
Yeah, so what we do, and I mean, you don't necessarily have to do this, but whenever our pellets come out, we actually put them right into a freezer just to cool them down. Um, Ideally, soon we'll have a walk-in freezer and we can put a lot more hops in there at one time. But so we like to cool them down before we bag them, just because of them going from extreme heat to extreme cold. Being in a bag, you might get some condensation in there. That's definitely something that you don't want, and then all the pellets start to stick together. Um, so yeah, when it comes to either nitrogen flush or you just suck all the air out of the bag, it really depends. Like for our homebrew sales or like our smaller packaging, we always do the pillow pack and flush it with nitrogen, leave some extra nitrogen in the bag. Um, but if it's a larger brewery and we're sending out 11 or 22 pound bags, especially when you get that big, it is kind of hard to work with a bag that big with nitrogen flush. Um, and if it's going into a brew shortly, we'll just vacuum seal it, and they're perfectly fine with that. So it also comes down to your customer and what they prefer.
Can you explain a little bit of the Mylar bags and the importance of these specific bags?
Yeah,
And also
so
the sizes?
yeah, so I'll start with sizes. Because we process for other farms as well, and there's all sorts of different sizes of breweries. We go anywhere from 1 ounce bags to up to even a 22 or a 33 pound bag. Generally, what we use is the 1 pound bag, a 5 pound bag, and an 11 pound bag. Those are kind of the general sizes that we stick with. As far as Mylar bags go, yeah, they're basically just like a foil bag, but they're really thick, and there's no window on them. You can't see through them. You don't want any light getting through, and because it's foil, light cannot penetrate, and that's almost as important as not allowing oxygen. So, and when they're sealed correctly, they seal very well. And the ones we choose have a little tear off. There's a little slit you can tear the top off. Makes it easier to open up.
So, Andrew, can we talk a little bit about your label and the requirements as far as lots and that go on the label of every pack of hops that you send out?
Yeah. So here in the United States, because when you look at hops, whole leaf undried hops are a raw agricultural product. There's less kind of guidelines and requirements for that. But as soon as you turn hops into a pellet, it is now a edible food product and has to be treated as such. So our packaging, other than just our general label and variety and alpha, has to include a lot number, harvest date. We put packaging date, and we put an expiration date on there. And our lot number is just so we can trace it. Say there was ever a recall or an issue like that, you're required to have a lot number to be able to trace that back.
A quick question: how long is the expiration date? I don't think I've ever seen that on hops.
Yeah, so we just come up with a generic. We typically do 2 years, and that's just obviously they're still usable. Quality will degrade a bit, but yeah, we just do 2 years, just to be safe. And obviously, we'll tell anybody, and anybody knows they can still use them. Obviously, you want to not wait that long if you don't have to, but
Sure.
we are required to do that.
So, can you talk about a little bit about the zoning? I think you mentioned, I think I recall you needed a variance, and I assume there's a special food license, or if it's a specific hops processing
Yep.
license.
So for us, our situation was a little unique. Most people wouldn't have to deal with zoning and issues like that. Where my farm is, we were actually zoned residential, even though we have large enough property and all that. The farming wasn't the issue. It was the issue of putting an agricultural processing building on a residential plot. So yeah, I had to get special permission from my township in order to do that, because there's different setback requirements and just a lot of red tape. So that was the biggest challenge out of all of this, but ultimately we were able to do it. And then the biggest thing that anybody else would really need to focus on is a food facility license here in the United States, just a USDA food facility. And basically that means that I'll get an annual inspection. And just like any restaurant would, they're coming in and looking for sanitation, hot and cold water, those things. So, which I'll elaborate on in the next question. But that is a license that you have to renew every year.
So, can you explain your structure that you built, the size, your future plans for a freezer, and then the issue you had with the electric?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we ended up just basically having it's kind of like a pole barn, but it's an all metal building that was put up, just the frame and a concrete slab. And from there, we built our own walls inside, insulated it, drywalled, did all that, put in a ceiling. The biggest things about that make it different from just a regular garage is all your walls, every surface has to be washable. So there's a special fiberglass reinforced plastic panels that run all on my walls, so they can literally be sprayed down with a hose. Had to put in floor drains, um, hot, cold water. So there's water heaters. Need a hand washing sink, a 3-bay sink for wash, rinse, sanitize. Those are all crucial, big, pretty standard things when it comes to a food facility. Just everything needs to be cleanable, and this has to be a separate building completely. Like this can't be a garage. There can't be a car or a tractor in here, those sort of things. This literally is a restaurant when you need to view it that way. So the floors have to be sealed, so that water can't sit in there. Yeah, there's a whole long list.
I'll bet.
And with with the electrical, yeah, this equipment uses a ton of electricity. That's a given. We actually had to have our electric provider upgrade our service to the whole property just to run 200 amps to this little building, which is only 600 square feet, to be able to run this equipment. And I'm actually not able to power on two of the pieces, the Hammermill and the Pelletizer, at the same time. For risk, I could blow the transformer, and they use a ton of electricity. So they're all 3-phase too. So that's something to keep in mind.
Can you speak about, Andrew, your processing hops for others, the need for the quality to arrive at your farm, the humidity to be right? You mentioned that you charge if they have to dry. And also, if I recall, that what you processed with me was some that you actually bought to resell. So can you explain the difference of processing for others, or if you're buying
Mm-hmm.
it, reselling it, etc.?
Yep. So yeah, when it comes to processing for other farms, we discuss it well beforehand, and when they bring their hops in, um, generally, so sorry, I'll back up. When it comes to how much they bring us, generally we'll say, all right, well, we need a minimum of 25 or 50 pounds, just because of that 5-pound loss. It's not worth doing it if they're only going to bring us 10 pounds, because they're going to lose half of it. So generally, our minimum is 20, 25 pounds, and we'll tell them they're going to lose 20 to 25% of that. And, sometimes they're okay with that. We haven't had any that were really that small of orders. And then the other big thing is moisture. So if the hops come in and we tell them, 8 to 10%, and if they come in and they're 12, 14, 15%, depending on the quantity, we'll dry them ourselves, but there typically would be an added charge with that. The other thing is I can run them through the pelletizer at that higher moisture, but it's going to be a lot more work for me. So we may charge more in that case too, because when they're wetter, the pellets come out not very good, so we have to run them back through, or it just takes a lot more time, or I have to slow down because it gets too hot, all those sort of things. So moisture when it's too high is a bit of a nightmare, and that's all stuff that is disclosed, and we talk with the farm that drops them off. So we really didn't have many issues this year with that. So generally they're pretty good. Yeah, when it comes to buying or reselling, I mean, we've had a couple of farms that have discussed possibly buying some of their hops rather than them wanting to deal with selling them whatsoever. Yeah, we have purchased, before we even process, we just buy a whole leaf, a little bit from a farm that was newer, and pelletized those hops, which when it goes back to lot numbers and everything, that all has to be labeled differently because it's a different location. So that's something to keep in mind if you ever do that.
So can we talk about the price that you charge for pelletizing, and then the general price of hops in your area? First, let's say dry hops, if you're selling them, mm-hmm. pelletized hops, and wet hops.
Yep. So as far as our services go, we stick within the range of what is industry standard here in this area. That can range anywhere from $1.75 up to $2.75 or $3. It all depends on volume. So the more hops you bring, the cheaper it is, sort of thing. So, we do it in tiers, and then depending on what kind of bags they want. If somebody were to bring us, we'll say 500 pounds of hops, and they want all 1 pound bags, it's probably going to cost a little more than if they just wanted in 11-pound bags. Just the substantial difference in labor there. And so it's kind of, every scenario can be a little different depending on what the customer wants. So that's something you have to keep in mind. But we do try and offer as many different options for them. So it's kind of and when it comes to hops in the central Pennsylvania area, there are a substantial amount of breweries, and there's a substantial amount of interest in local hops. So pellets here can sell anywhere from 12 to 18, maybe even 20 pounds, $20 a pound. There's a big range there. And the brewers understand that it's something different. It's, they're paying for that niche, that's something different. And as far as whole cone, I really don't know. I don't sell any whole cone, and I know very few, if any, breweries that want anything to do with it. And then for wet hops, that can range to anywhere from $6 to $12 a pound, just depending on the volume and how much they want.
So, Andrew, can we talk a little bit about the cost of the investment that you made? Obviously, the building could change, but give us an idea on the building, the electric, the 3 machines you bought as a package, and then I guess the bagger was separate, and then obviously miscellaneous.
So, I mean, it's pretty obvious that doing something like this is an extreme investment. May seem especially extreme when, there's such small hop farms in this area, but to do it right, to have an actual food facility and do it correctly, it is substantially more expensive than just putting it in, your garage or your barn. When it comes to like the pole building like this, that was actually the cheapest part. A couple grand, that's installed, delivered, everything. Concrete slab, and that's all going to depend on what your township or wherever you live, requires for codes. We were required to do a very large slab, so 22 yards of concrete for this, and Pennsylvania has very high prices for concrete, so that was a big expense. When it gets into the equipment and the electrical, that's where a lot of it is. I was able to do all the plumbing in the building by myself, but this type of commercial, which it is all commercial electric, it's not residential. Paying an electrician to do that, very expensive. You're in the thousands of dollars even for something small there. And then if you don't have 3-phase power, like we don't have 3-phase power, we had to get an inverter or a special machine that makes 3-phase power. That's adds up in the thousands. And when it comes to the Buzzkirk equipment, I don't know where it's at now. We bought ours 3 years ago. You're probably in the 15 to 20,000 range roughly, but those prices always change. It could be less, it could be more. Just depends on metal and everything. And it is all made in the United States. So, I know their prices vary. As far as everything else, it's, it adds up, and it's certainly a big venture.
The bagger setup, what was that about?
Yeah, those I believe are going new, maybe 1,500.
Okay.
And then you have to buy an air compressor to go with it, and you have to buy a nitrogen tank, which we exchange ours for full ones.
So we're down to the last question. Have you ever been to Brazil, and when are you going?
I have never been there. I would certainly love to someday. And hopefully once COVID's gone and things are easier, that might be down the road. Definitely somewhere I'd love to see.
Well, you're always welcome if you're ever have the urge. Bring the family, come down for Carnival, drink some
Yeah,
Brazilian beer, some
that
Brazilian
sounds
hops.
great.
You're
That
always
does.
invited. So I want to thank you, and let's take some questions now, if there are any. I see one here, but looks like we answered it. There was one question of how much did the equipment cost, and he mentioned between $15,000 and $20,000, depending on the year. Could be more because he bought the equipment a few years ago.
Yeah.
So another question we have here. Uh, do you know how many RPMs that the pelletizer is actually spinning?
You know,
Uh,
I actually was looking for that before we got on here, and I was having trouble finding it. So I can let you know personally um, what that'll be. And I'm
okay.
sure it's really loud in the background here, so give me a second.
So I have another person from Brazil saying congratulations on your work,
Oh,
and
thank you.
he asked, or they ask, if do you pelletize on the same day, and if you when you do pelletize, do you lose a lot of the alpha and beta acids?
I have not noticed any substantial loss, and a lot of that would have to do with if heat, that sort of thing. Um, and depending on how much we have, we can pelletize throughout a couple of days. As long as the hops are dried correctly, um, they're okay. We're not at the point yet where we're getting bales, but ideally that would be down the road with correct, walk-in storage, that sort of thing, cold storage. Um, but yeah, we can break it up. We usually do it over the course of a couple of days, and as long as we time our harvest correctly, everything kind of flows. And you really need that synchronization, or you're going to get backed up.
Another person says, thank you, Max, for initiative, and Andrew for the time and the know-how sharing. Well, you're
Absolutely,
welcome.
anytime.
And another question here is, how is the market for medicinal hops? Is there any market there for that in your area?
Um, not not really. Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. We're in Brazil, they're thinking a lot of that. I think in the world, I think we're still a ways out for medicinal use in hops, but
Right.
I always say that the future of hops for medicinal use could be bigger than for beer with the amount
It
of
could, and
oils.
there are other uses. Like we have some soaps that were just made in like beard balm and stuff. So we'll be selling that, but that's a little different.
So, Andrew, that's all the questions. We have a few more people saying thanks a lot. And I want to
Yeah,
thank you
absolutely.
also for your knowledge. I learned a lot. We all learned a lot. And as I said, I will be posting this on our YouTube new channel, Hops World. I'll put links up here, link on Instagram. This week, we'll put that on there. And we will have contact information for Andrew. I'll put all the statistics too, the machine actual numbers and model numbers. Hopefully we can get that RPM range and
Yeah.
put that on there too before I post on YouTube. It's our canal is Hops World. This is our second live. We will be doing one per month. And starting next week, also we'll be doing little video all about hops. Our first one's going to be germinating seeds, but we're going to go every week, something new, all about hops. Thanks again, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Here's to life. Take it easy.
You too.
Hey, hey, folks. Just got done editing the live in all English to make it easier for everyone. There were a few questions during the live that we weren't sure of. The main one was the revolutions per minute of the pelletizer. I didn't actually come up with the exact answer, but what I did was I slowed down the video and I actually counted the die to see how many revolutions it made in 10 seconds, and then by calculation, it's about 140 revolutions per minute. Seems pretty slow, but the machine is all torque and little velocity. Again, I want to thank my friend Andrew Lyons from Lyons Buying Hops Farm. We will put links at the end of the video here, how to get a hold of him. He's in central Pennsylvania, but he accepts hops from anywhere to process, pelletize, bag, whatever you need. So get a hold of him. For those of you who liked the video, please hit like, subscribe to our channel, Hops World. We will be doing a live once a month. Thanks, everyone. Cheers to life.
All right.